the story as you remember it, starting from 1939.
In 1939, I remember, maybe it was a little bit before, that they mobilized the Czechoslovakian. They mobilized against the German. But I remember I still was a little girl, how we all were nervous about a war. But the war didn't come at that time to my hometown. It came only later on when I found out that Czechoslovakia was overrun by part of Germany, part of Czechoslovakia was overrun by Hungarian, and we fell under the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians were people got together, they organized a government for themselves, young boys. These boys, some of them were that I knew from my own town, and the first thing that they did were coming against the Jews, against their homes, against their property. I remember as a little girl, we always had somebody take care on our house on Shabbos and putting wood in the stove. The first thing that I noticed that the girl didn't come to put wood on Shabbos, and we had to stay in the winter time in the cold weather without any heat, without any, the cow wasn't milked anymore. We had a farm, and usually Goyim took care on the property. But one day, Shabbos, they just didn't show up. They put in front of our house somebody to take care, to watch the house. Nobody should come to work for Jewish people. This didn't last too long because the Hungarian overran the Ukrainian government. We were saved from the Ukrainians, but we were occupied by the Hungarians, which it was just as bad. They as soon they came in, they already made us do a lot of things that it was against our wishes. Like on Saturday, we had to go to school. Even we didn't ride on Shabbos, but they made us sit there in school and listen, read. On Sunday, we had to go with them to church. They made us go to church. I was only 11 years old, and I never walked by a church. But when I had to go into church, it really frightened me. But this was just my memory, because I was a little girl. This is what comes in my memory the most. There were a lot of laws all the time. They said a new law came out. The Jews can't have businesses. They took away the business from the Jews. We couldn't ride a train, and every week another law would come. But I was a little girl, and it didn't interfere too much with my life as long as I stayed home with my family. Until 1943, that was really the worst, when I knew they coming to take us away from home. I remember we all stayed home, and the gendarme, it's like police here, they came and they took us from home to next town where they had a ghetto. First, the name of this ghetto was Iloshva. In this town, this was a bigger town, they brought from all small towns from that neighborhood. We stayed there in that ghetto for about 3 weeks. And after that, they took us by train. We all went in a bigger ghetto. This ghetto was Munkach. Hell couldn't be worse than that ghetto. It was really horrible. But we still were together with the family, and we were hoping that better days will have to come. And we were praying that God should help us, and we should get back home with our families. But as time went by, every day was long, long, long days. There we used to see already German police coming in, not too many. Most of the guard were Hungarians. But they used to take young boys and beat them, punish them, make the mothers watch how their sons are being punished and killed. We didn't have any water there, no food, no water, only our things that we took along from home. But we were already at that time 2 months from home, so we didn't have any food left over. Even sometimes when they said that they would give us food, we were afraid to come, because many times they play tricks. They says they're going to give us food or bread, and they took the boys and girls or the people, and they would hit them over the head, and they would shoot at them. So we were afraid to go. We didn't know when it was true and when it was for real. My father was at that time with my brothers, my sisters. We were all together. Then one day they said they're going to take us from that camp. This was only a story, really, and the young people will go to work and the older people will go back home. They shoved us into a train, and we never knew what our destiny will be. Finally, we came after 3 days. We arrived into a camp where we stopped, and we looked out through the windows, and what we saw there was, we knew it was something like a camp, and we saw people in uniforms, and they were standing, waiting near the train for us to come down. When we came down, we saw already the Germans took over. We didn't see any Hungarians anymore, so this showed that we were already in Germany. We really didn't know where or what, but we knew it's Germany because the Germans were surrounded us. These were Jewish people that were waiting for us near the train, and they helped us to climb down because it was a freight train, and they told us to come down. While we were walking down, there were standing Germans and showing us some people to go to the right, some people to the left. I really didn't know where we were going, which direction to go. The only thing want to go back home with my father and my brothers because I didn't have a mother. And I knew that somebody has to take care of my father and my brothers. My sisters went to the right, and my father and my brother went to the left. And I want to go with my father and my brothers. I tried to sneak away and go the other way. I was 16 years old, but I was very small, and they didn't want to take me to work. But I didn't know that my father and my brothers are going in a bad place. At that time, a Jewish boy grabbed me by the coat and pushed me the other way. I should go to my sisters. But I didn't know, and I was very angry. How can a Jewish boy not let me go through to my father? My sisters went away already, and I lost them. Here I was all by myself already, lost from my sisters, and lost from my father and my brothers. They took us when we arrived there, we didn't know what it is. It was a big white building. They told us to take off all the clothes, and we're going to take a bath. But we really were so scared because we saw men walk around there, and we didn't know what was going on. We lost our sisters, our brothers, our mothers, our fathers, and we were just running from place to place, and they tried to herd us like cattle into that building. Finally, when we got to that building, we got undressed, and men came and they cut all our hair. We knew that things must be very bad that time. They asked if anybody has any gold, rings, watches, whatever they had, we all had to throw it in a big pile. I remember only one thing, that my eyes were always looking for my sisters. I should only find somebody. I knew already that I'm going away not with my brothers, my father. I was hoping to go at least to be with my sisters so we could be together, but I couldn't find my sisters. They cut my hair. I had long hair. They cut my hair, and I felt very, very funny without hair. And I was so anxious to see myself, how I looked without hair. But there was no place, a mirror or something. After they took a bath, gave us a shower, and they gave us all the same gray long dresses. No underwear, no shoes, nothing, just a long gray dress. I was very little, and that dress was so long that I really had to hold it up in my hands so I could walk. They took us from there into a big barrack where they said all the time they counted 10 girls, and the 10 girls had to share like one bed. It wasn't a bed, it was built from boards, 3 floors, one, the bottom, middle, top. So everybody went to the bottom. Even I was younger, I didn't want to climb up to the third, but it was whoever came first. They always counted 10, and the 10 girls had to go into one bed. I found myself among completely strange girls that I never met, strange people. Here we were, just laying there, frightened, scared, nobody to talk to, nobody to ask any questions. We didn't know what's going to be the next thing. Just sit and wait. Finally, they let us stay there overnight. We couldn't sleep. We were very restless. We didn't have place. On the boards, we weren't used to it, of course, just the dress without our hair, and we were very, very upset. It came around 2 o'clock in the morning. They woke us all up, and they started yelling. For the first time I heard the word "C'est l'appel." What it meant, I didn't know, but I saw everybody's going, so I followed everybody with them. They said, you should know, whenever they called "C'est l'appel," they explained it to us, you have to walk out, stay in a line, form a line, 5 people, and they should be able to count us. We did that, and as I my eyes still were looking for my sisters, and I kept looking all over. Maybe I could see my sisters. Then I saw somebody looked very familiar, and she looked, of course it couldn't be him because there were no boys. She looked like my cousin, a boy. Yankee was his name. So I says, can't be. So I called Yankee, and she looks back, and that was my cousin Lily. And I saw her, I was start laughing that she looked just like her brother. So I says, did you see my sisters? She says, they're standing next to me. And I didn't recognize my sisters. Well, I was so happy already that I found my sisters that I didn't even want to think nothing. I said, please, can I change with you the line? Can you stay here? I could go to my sisters. This time I was holding on to my sisters already, for I didn't want to lose them because I didn't recognize them. They walked away 1 step from me. I lost them already because everybody had the same clothes. They had no hair. I didn't recognize them without hair. So this was the first day in Auschwitz. I was already happy to be with my sisters, miserable to be away, and not knowing what our destiny will be. When we asked some people there that were already from before, can you tell us where are our parents? When can we go to see them? They didn't want to say anything. These were Jewish girls that took care. They were there a long time. They said they're already there from 1942. They were from Slovakia. These girls said, we don't know where your parents are. We don't know when you'll be able to see them. First, relax, stay here, and you'll see wherever they'll take you to work. But no sooner, not too long, maybe a day or 2, we kept on annoying these girls so long. They were in charge on this barrack. we annoyed the girls so long, we got them angry one day. We didn't want to eat, we annoyed them, we made a lot of noise, we started crying. Says, you gotta tell us, when can we go to see our parents? They says, you'll never see your parents anymore. Well, we didn't want to ask anymore because we had a funny feeling that something is going on, something terrible had happened to our parents. But we stayed in Auschwitz only lucky. We were lucky to get out of there fast. We only stayed there about 4 days. They took us from there to a working camp. They said, we're going to work. They put us back on a train and they took us to Poland. We didn't know where, but they said it's Krakow. This camp, Krakow, we were the first people from Czechoslovakia to arrive into this camp. Most of the people in this camp were from Poland, from the suburbs and from the city of Krakow. They were so happy to see some people coming from Auschwitz that maybe we were able to tell them what's happening to their children there and to their parents also. But we knew better than that, not to tell them. Maybe they will have some hope and maybe some people will survive from Auschwitz. They were very nice to us. We only came in one dress, but they gave us right away underwear and blankets. It was a cold day. It was in May, but it was very cold. It was raining. They gave us blankets, shoes. They shared with everything that they had because they knew that we were in need. When the first few days, they just let us stay there and rest up. After that, they said, we're going to start working. We asked the people, what kind of work can we do in this camp? They said they don't know what they will do, but most of these people were already working. Some worked in a kitchen, some worked in clothing factory, some people worked in the city even. When we got to work, the first day when they said we're going to work, they took us near the camp was a big mountain. They said they really don't have for us work, but we just can't lay around there. So they made us carry big rocks from one end of the mountains to the other side of the mountains. The next day, they would take us from the other side of the mountains, bring back the rocks in camp, just to make sure that we're working. This wasn't so bad yet until they decided they really have to punish us for some reason, I guess just because we were Jews. They made us take big boards, 2 girls. The boards were so heavy that we literally couldn't pick them up. But we picked up the boards and we carried them over the mountains. They chased us with dogs, and whoever couldn't carry the board or didn't go fast enough, these German shepherds literally tore apart many girls. It was a horrible experience. This was going on for about 3 weeks. Then finally, I guess this was like they trained us. This is what camp is. Then we worked at night in the kitchen, and in daytime they used to take us to make roads. When we worked on the roads, it wasn't so bad because we knew at least we were working. It wasn't something that we're just doing without anything creating. We were making roads in Krakow. It was very hard work, and it started getting hot outside in the sun, without hair, without any shelter outside, all day long. But we had to work and just hope that someday we'll come out of it. We stayed in this camp for about 3 months. After 3 months, they liquidated this camp, and we didn't know again where is our next destination. They put us back into a train, into a cattle train, back on the road. When they opened the train, we recognized the place where we were. We were scared again, what's going to happen? We're back in Auschwitz. It was a horrible experience because we recognized again Dr. Mengele. He starts selecting again people, one to the right and one to the left. There weren't any old people this time, no children, but he was looking. The weaker people that worked so hard, they didn't look so good, went back on one side, and the stronger girls went on the other side. Of course, at that time, we already knew what was going on, and we all were anxious to go in the working camp. We were in Auschwitz for another 3 weeks. This time, we were hoping that maybe they'll take us again to a working camp, because every day they would come, they would select a few hundred girls and they would take them away and they would never return them. We knew exactly where these girls went because they never returned. There we were tattooed, and my number is A18650, which that was my name. From then on, my name was the number. We stayed in Auschwitz for 6 weeks. In September, again, there was a selection. They were looking for strong girls, and everybody wanted to be at that time strong. Even we were already so weak with the need for days. We didn't have any strength, but we were willing to go to working camps because we knew we had a better chance in a working camp than in Auschwitz. I was lucky again and selected into a working camp. They selected 400 girls, and they took us with a train, and we arrived in a camp. It wasn't really a camp, it was a big house, and we were there 400 girls. It was called Neustadt, Oberschlesien. There in Oberschlesien, some girls went to work in a weaving factory. Some girls went to work for ammunition. I went to work in the weaving factory. I was there again with my sisters, thank God, and one of my cousins, that we always tried to stay in one line and be selected at the same time. We didn't have it so bad in this camp for a simple reason. Even we worked 12, 14, 16, sometimes even 18 hours in this camp. But we had enough food, we were young, and we kept on going. In December, we knew there were some German people, and they told us that the Russians are coming very close. We were hoping that we will be liberated from the Russians. One day when we returned back to camp from the weaving factory, there were the Germans already standing and back on a go. They told us we're going away from here, but we wouldn't know where we're going. This German, I never know who he was the only one that he was really nice to us. He was the Oberscharführer from Neustadt. He says, I'm sorry to tell you that you're going away from here, but we don't know where we're going. We start out this in January, going on foot, no more trains, because they didn't have any trains. We were just going day and night, and a matter of fact, many times we heard in the background shooting and bombing. We were bombed many times in the factory. We had to go down from the factory into the Schützengraben to hide. We really didn't care much, but we always were hoping that we will survive and that the war will end and we will survive. When we were walking this cold weather, no food, it was just horrible. That time we knew that this is the last thing. we cannot run anymore, and the Germans, we're getting near to our death. When we finally arrived in a camp, Mauthausen. In this camp, we met some Czechoslovakian flyers. They were there in that camp since 1938. They never knew what was doing outside in this world. We brought them the news that what happened to Czechoslovakia, what happened to the Jewish people, and who we are. Of course, they were happy to hear that there is still a world outside those electric wires. And they said, we always hope that someday we'll be free again. And Czechoslovakia is going to be a country again. Of course, it felt with those people like at home, because we never met Czechoslovakian people during the war. After this camp, after Mauthausen, in Mauthausen, they really took us back in a train, and they started rolling that train with our destination. We were bombed in Mauthausen. We were bombed from that train many times, but we always somehow were lucky to get away, escape. Many girls, many of my friends were killed during the bombing from that train. But thank God, myself and my two sisters and my cousin, we still were together. We arrived in Bergen-Belsen on February 1944. Bergen-Belsen was the last camp I came to. Hell couldn't be worse than this camp. There we didn't work anymore. There was nothing for us to do. We were so weak, we were so tired, we were so exhausted, they just let us lay there and die. I was the lucky one to survive with my two sisters and my cousin. After the war, when I was liberated from the English. When I was liberated, I don't even remember how it happened. When I remember the first thing, I was in the hospital. All I remember asking, where are my sisters?
Is there anything you can tell us about camp life after liberation?
Well, when we were liberated in Bergen-Belsen, this was called the dead camp. From there, they took us out into different barracks where the soldiers were before. And there, they set up like hospitals, and they put us there in these hospitals. They took care, they brought nurses in and doctors taking care. From there, I moved to a different town. It was called Celle by Hanover. In this little city, we established our own community. We already had a Bas Yankov, we had a rabbi there. We built our own shul right away, and the girls used to get together. We had there English, Jewish volunteers that came to help us with setting up a house and a kosher kitchen we had, and somehow these people really helped us a lot. They were volunteers from England.
Could you tell me how you're home? Could you tell me the name of the ghettos, state the dates of your stay there? In the following questions, give the relevant details for all the ghettos in which you were in.
The first ghetto we went was Iloshva, and they took us away from home day after Pesach in 1944. We stayed in this ghetto 3 weeks, and from this ghetto they took us to Munkac.
Were you in the same town before the ghetto was set up? If not, in what places were you in between September 1st, 1939 and the establishment of the first ghetto you were in?
I was in Zarich since 1939 till the ghetto of Iloshva till 1943, a day after Pesach.
What anti-Jewish actions were taken before the ghetto was established, including programs, dates, and details organized by the Germans or others, or jointly?
I don't remember the date, but I remember after the Czechoslovakians left, the Ukraine took over, and they were really very bad to the Jews. They made the Jewish people to stay in cold houses. They wouldn't let the non-Jewish, the Christian people to heat our houses, take care on our farms, milk the cows, and as religious Jews we didn't do this on Saturday. So we just stayed in the house all day Saturday. Then when the Hungarians came in, we were safe from the Ukraine, but the Hungarians, of course, every week they would give another law against the Jews. The first they said that we cannot go in colleges and higher schools. Then they made the children go on Saturday to school. They even made us go to church. They wouldn't let us go on a train. And if we want to go from one city to another, we had to take out a permit. And this all was only for Jewish people. We were really discriminated.
Did any of your family live in the same ghetto with you?
Yes, my whole family came with me in the ghetto. My father, my two brothers, and my two sisters, of course, aunts and uncles.
What work did you do in the ghetto?
We didn't work in the ghetto at all.
If you were a refugee in the ghetto from another place, what was the local inhibitions attitude towards you?
When we came to Ileshwa, this was really, a lot of Jewish people lived before in these streets where they made the ghetto. So we came in, I remember we came in about 4 families into the town, from my town into one family in this ghetto. They had 3 rooms altogether. But as long as we had room to sit on the floor, these people were very nice. They were willing to share with us whatever they had.
People, you refugees from other places.
We didn't have any refugees in my hometown.
Was it allowed to leave the ghetto at first? For how long?
No, we weren't allowed to leave the ghetto at all.
Could you approximate the size of the ghetto?
I think the Ileshwa ghetto was about 3 long avenue blocks.
Were there more than one ghetto in the same town?
No.
Was there a wall, a wooden fence, or barbed wire?
And Ileshwa, I really don't remember. I just know we were near the river and we couldn't cross the river, so we couldn't get out from there.
Do you remember the guards, how they were positioned at the gates?
Well, there were the Hungarians and the Maria surrounded.
You don't remember any of the systems of entry or anything?
No, I don't remember.
Did you have any knowledge of what went on outside of the Nazi territory?
Well, no, I don't know what was going on outside the ghetto.
Did you have radios?
No.
Underground newspapers or leaflets?
No. At least I don't know about it. Maybe people knew, but I was very young, so maybe they didn't want to tell me.
Did you receive any letters from abroad?
No, no.
When did you know the truth about the extermination?
Well, when I came to Auschwitz, maybe the 2nd or the 3rd day, they told us that the older people and the children were went to the gas chambers.
Did you have any personal or family plans to escape? What were they?
Well, at one time when I was in Neustadt, Oberschlesien, I was in the weaving factory. There, one German, I was a Meisterin working there under a German, and he told me that the Russians are very near, but if I would escape and stay a few days, then I would be liberated from the Russians. And it really entered my mind how to do it. I worked with my sister in the same factory, so I figured it would be a very good idea, just me and my sister. And I told him about my sister, and he says, fine, he would take us both. But one thing, I had one sister, and she was in charge on camp, and we didn't want to leave behind the other sister. So we decided, me and my sister that worked in the weaving factory, not to leave my sister in camp. When I came home and I told the idea for my sister, maybe she could sneak into the weaving factory and we all three go. But my sister had no way to come to the weaving factory, and we didn't want to leave my sister, so we went along with my other sister.
What did you eat in the ghetto at different times?
Well, in Illoshore we still had food from home, but in Munkach we already starved more than we ate. We hardly ate anything. There are certain days that even they gave food, but we were afraid to go for it because we never knew if they're going to give us food or they're going to kill us.
What was the method of distribution? How did they distribute it?
They had a kitchen, and they went according families. We had certain tickets that it says how many to the family, and that's how many spoons of soup they would give, or for 4 people they would give 1 bread.
Who distributed these things, the food?
The some Jewish people worked in the kitchen, girls and boys, but the Hungarian soldiers were in charge.
What was the size of living space throughout the time? How many people in the apartment or room?
In Illoshore we were about 5 families in 3 rooms, but in Munkach we already were outside. There was no headquarters. We were in the street.
What was the cooking and sanitary arrangements and the availability of coal or wood for heating?
There was no heating and no sanitary facilities at all.
How about cooking arrangements?
No.
Nothing?
No, they had a kitchen there, 1 kitchen where they cooked for everybody, and they distributed the food, but as an individual we could not cook for ourselves.
But the Jewish people work in the cooking area also?
Yes, Jewish boys, they were working, but the Hungarian soldiers were in charge to distribute the food.
What pre-war political parties were there? What pre-war political parties were there?
I really don't remember much about the parties. My father, if he used to talk politics or something, I was annoyed because I was young and I wasn't interested in all that.
Who was the first Judenrat appointed? How was the first Judenrat appointed?
We didn't have in our town. I guess because we were a small town, we were only 25 Jewish families in our town.
Could you tell me all you remember about the Jewish police?
I only remember that I used to see police with a band on their arm. It says police, but I really don't know how they were elected, who elected them. And I know one thing, I wasn't afraid of a Jewish policeman, but I was afraid of a German policeman.
What was the first camp, the name of it, that you were in?
The first camp, we arrived in Auschwitz around May, beginning of May.
And what was the method of transportation used to get there?
We went by train.
Did you arrive alone or with members of your family? What happened to them?
But I came with my family, with my father, my brothers, my 2 sisters. And my father and the 2 brothers went on one side, and I went with my 2 sisters on the other side.
Was there a selection on arrival?
Yes, as soon as we got off the train, they selected us. And it seems that the younger people went on one side, and the older people and the children went on the other side.
Who did the selecting?
Germans.
Did you know what it meant at that time?
Not at that time, I didn't know.
Can you describe the location and the size of the camp, its guard system? When was the camp set up?
When we got there, the camp was there. I really don't know how long the camp was there, but we found a lot of Jewish people already in that camp from different countries, from Poland and from we came there, there were already Slovaks and Polish people.
Do you remember the size of the camp?
Each camp was 10 barracks And in each barrack was 1,000 girls. That means about 10,000 girls, and it was always surrounded with electric wire.
Do you remember the location of the camp?
Our camp was called B2, Czech.
Can you name the commanders, the officers, and the men that you remember, characterize them?
No, I don't.
None of them?
No.
How many Germans guarded the camp? How many non-Germans, Ukrainians, for example? Were the Germans SS or did they belong to the other units?
The Germans were SS, but they guarded a camp. I really don't know how many there were, but they were standing high on like little houses built around the camp.
Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis or war criminals?
Well, I know a lot of things what they did, and I seen they did it, but I don't know their names or where they are now.
Okay, what was the composition of the inmates, their ages, their sex, religion?
And various camps were different people. Like when we came to Auschwitz, they selected us, and most of the people that I stayed with, they were all girls. And most of them were from, I say, about age 16 to 25. Then in different camps, we met different people.
What did the work consist of?
In Auschwitz, we didn't work.
Can you describe the good ones and the bad ones?
The
Kapos?
The capos?
Uh-huh.
Well, in this camp where we didn't work, we didn't have any capos.
Can you describe the food in Auschwitz?
When we came to Auschwitz, we really couldn't get used to it or even go near the food. It was a soup, some kind of a soup, but we didn't eat it. We
What
didn't
color was it?
It was like a brown.
Can you describe the daily routine there?
In Auschwitz, we only stayed for about 3 days. So we stayed Seilapel, which they woke us up 2 o'clock in the morning. We stayed till about 8 o'clock. Then we went in, they gave us coffee. We stayed indoor, and then we went out again for Seilapel, stayed again, back in the barracks, again Seilapel, and this was going on.
Were people killed there?
I didn't see in Auschwitz any people killed while I was there the first 3 days.
Oh, then after the 3 days? Oh, that was the end of the last day.
I left that camp after 3 days.
Were there attempts to escape?
Not from Auschwitz.
Was there an organized underground?
Not that I know of.
Planned resistance? Were there contacts with the outside in Auschwitz?
No, we didn't have any.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
No.
Were there any children in the camp, hidden or open?
No, not in Auschwitz.
What was the relationship between the Jewish inmates?
Well, we were, most inmates that we stayed were from my hometown and from the neighborhood. But we were right away very bitter against the Slovak people because they told us that they killed our parents, and we felt that they were very rude to tell us that our parents went to the gas chambers.
What about the relationship between Jews and non-Jews?
I didn't meet in Auschwitz the first 3 days non-Jews.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates? Please give details.
At the beginning, I didn't need any help, and there was anybody they could do for me.
Were you ill?
Not in the beginning in Auschwitz.
Was there any medical attention at all?
Not in Auschwitz when I got there, no.
Describe the clothing, the sanitary conditions.
We had only one single dress on our backs. That was a long gray dress, and the sanitary condition, they called it a latrina. They would take us in the morning. We all had to go to the bathroom, we want to go or not. And all day long they didn't take us. And then at night again.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially?
No.
What was the next camp that you were in?
The next camp we went to Plaszow, that's near Krakow.
And what was the date of arrival there?
We came there by the end of May.
What was the method of transportation?
We came there by train.
Did you arrive alone or with members of your family, and what happened to them?
I came there with my 2 sisters and a cousin of mine. We went through the whole war together.
Was there a selection on arrival there?
No, not at this camp.
Describe the location and the size of the camp and its guard system.
This camp was located exactly on Krakow cemetery, Jewish cemetery, which the steps were all made from the tombs from the cemetery where people were buried.
Do you remember the size of the camp?
It was about, I would say, about 20 square block.
How about the guard system?
The guard, most of them were SS, and there were also Ukraine in black uniforms.
Do you remember the names of the commanders of the officials?
No, I don't.
How many Germans guarded the camp? How many non-Germans?
Oh, there were hundreds of Germans guarded.
Were they Germans or non-Germans?
Germans.
Were the Germans SS or did they belong to other units?
Some were already there, Wehrmacht, but most of them were SS.
Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis as war criminals?
No, I wouldn't know them.
What was the composition of the inmates? Could you tell me again what was the composition of the inmates there?
There were a lot of Polish. Some of them were, matter of fact, husband and wives in this camp. Some of them, the age was all ages because some of them were older. There were also the Polish non-Jews. There were Germans that were accused for crimes. There were French, non-Jewish French people that were also criminals, and and a lot of gypsies.
What did the work consist of?
Well, in this camp we worked already. First we just carried rocks from one side of the mountain to the other. Then we had to carry boards from one side of the other. And after that we made the roads in Krakow.
Could you please describe the capos, the good ones and the bad ones?
Well, we had capos that were very nice to us sometimes, that they would get hit from the Germans because they didn't make us work hard enough. And sometimes we got bad capos, of course, and they used to hit us. We should work faster.
Could you describe the food there?
There the food was better already. It consists of soups, rice, and bread.
Could you describe the daily routine there?
The first thing in the morning, we would stay for about 2 hours sail-appel. We would get up around 4 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock. Our working hours were from about 7 to 7 or 8 o'clock. Then we came back to camp and we had to stay again sail-appel for about an hour.
Were people killed? How and when? By whom?
Yes. In this camp, the most horrible thing that I ever witnessed during all the camps. At one time, I worked in a place where they used to bring in trucks, loads of people. These people, they said, were criminals. They used to either they killed Nassars they found in the street. Most of them looked very intelligent people, and they would even call them by their titles like doctor or professor. These people were Polish people. They would first announce the crime they committed, and all the people were blindfolded. We had made ditches before they arrived there and put wood underneath. When they took them off the trucks, they made them walk to the ditches. They said, "Step forward." When they were near the ditches, they shot them. But most of the people weren't shot to death. They were shot in their leg and their arm, and they fell into the ditch. When they fell into the ditch, we had to go down to the ditch and take off their boots, and the man had to open up their mouths to see if they have golden teeth and tear out their teeth. They were screaming something unbelievable. And after they we did the job one by one. We had to pour gasoline over them and burn them.
Were there attempts to escape?
No, not from this camp.
Was there an underground,
Not that I know of it.
a planned resistance?
Not that I didn't know about
How
it.
about contact with the outside?
Yes, we used to go out to work, in the streets, and we used to talk sometimes to Polish people. And the Polish people would say that it wouldn't take long before we will be liberated.
Was there any attempt at cultural activity?
No.
Were there any children in the camp, hidden or open?
There were no open children, but I knew that some mothers hid their children. And there was a big secret, but everybody knew about the secret.
What was the relationship between the Jewish inmates? Was there antagonism between groups from the same town, between groups from different towns, between Polish and other Jews, between Jews and non-Jews?
No, I think the Jewish people most of the time stuck together and were helping one another. I felt that these people really welcomed us to this camp, and they tried to share with us whatever they had.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates?
Yes, in this camp I got a lot of help from them. Clothes, food. They always felt sorry for me because I was so little that I worked hard, so they would help me out. They would give me an extra piece of bread, and they were very nice.
Who was they?
The Polish people, they were there before we
Back
came
when?
there.
Were you ill there?
No.
Was there medical attention of any kind?
Yes, there was. They called it a revier. It was like a hospital, but most of the people were afraid to go into the hospital because so many people died in that hospital after they went in, so they said maybe they poisoned them or something like it.
Was it run by Jewish or German personnel?
There were Jewish doctors in the hospital, but there were also Germans that watched over the Jewish doctors. But I know that there were a lot of doctors that worked with me doing the roads, the ditches, and they wouldn't say that they were doctors.
Can you describe the clothing?
There we had clothing already like civilian, because except we had to have a number on the front and in the back on our clothing. But we had received the civilian clothing from the Polish people that were there before we came.
How were the sanitary conditions there?
It wasn't so bad because they had a latrina. We were able to go at night to wash ourselves.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially?
No.
Okay. What was the next camp that you went to?
From Plaszow, we went back to Auschwitz.
What was the method of transportation?
We went back
Okay.
by train.
And what was the dates?
And it was, I think, beginning of September.
Did you arrive alone or with members of your family?
I came back with my two sisters and my cousin.
Was there again a selection or on arrival?
Yes, there was again a selection, and I recognized again Mengele was selecting.
Did you know what it meant then?
At that time, I knew already that the people that didn't look so good and they looked weak, they're taking them to the crematoriums, I knew.
Oh, you actually knew they were going to kill them. Describe the location and the size of the camp, its guard system.
Back to the same size camp. They had in each, I think, 10 barracks, and each barrack 1,000 girls.
Can you name the commanders, the officials, and the men?
I don't remember.
How many Germans guarded the camp?
There were a lot of Germans guarding Auschwitz.
Were the Germans SS or they belonged to the other units?
They were SS.
Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis as war criminals?
No, not that I could really point out.
What was the composition of the inmates?
There we were with girls only.
They were Jewish or non-Jewish?
All Jewish.
From what towns did they come from?
From all over, different countries.
What did the work consist of?
We didn't work in Auschwitz.
Can you describe the food there?
In the morning we had coffee and a piece of bread, and lunchtime we had soup, and that was the all-day food.
Can you describe the daily routine?
Most of the day we stayed Seilapel and stayed indoor.
Were people killed there? How and when and by whom?
Well, I've seen some people were killed just from the Germans beaten to death, but not really that I saw people shot.
Were there attempts to escape?
No, not from Auschwitz.
Was there an underground
Not that I know of.
planned resistance?
No,
How about contact with outside?
no,
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
no,
Were there any children in the camp, hidden or open?
no, not that I know.
Was there a relationship between the Jewish inmates? What was the relationship between the Jewish inmates?
I had always good relationship with inmates.
Was there antagonism between groups from the same town, between groups from different towns?
No, no.
How about Jewish and non-Jewish?
We only were Jewish people in this camp.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates?
No, not there.
Were you ill?
No,
Was there medical attention of any kind?
no.
Can you describe me the clothing, please?
There we had got long skirts and a blouse.
How about the sanitary conditions?
Once a day we were able to go to the latrinas.
Did you or anyone else receive mail or parcels?
No.
Can you tell me the name of the next camp that you were at?
The next camp from Auschwitz we went to Neustadt, Oberschlesien.
Do you remember the date?
End of September,
And what method was used for transportation there?
by train.
Did you arrive alone or with members of your family?
I was lucky to go there with my two sisters and a cousin of mine.
And what happened to them there?
They were there with me all the time.
Was there a selection on arrival, and did you know what it meant?
Not at arrival, but before we left Auschwitz, we were selected. They were looking for girls that had good eyes and good hands.
Describe the location and the size of the camp.
This was not a camp. It was one big building, 3 stories high.
How about the guard system? Do you remember that?
The guard system, it was electric wires, and we were guarded from SS.
When was the camp set up?
The day when we got there,
Do you remember the date of that, the year?
it was September 1944.
Can you tell me the name of the commanders, the officers, and men that you remember?
I don't remember them by name.
How about characterize them? How many Germans guarded the camp?
In this camp, maybe we had about 25 Germans altogether.
Were they Germans or non-Germans?
They were Germans.
Were they SS or did they belong to other
Yes,
units?
they were SS and Wehrmacht.
Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis or war criminals?
No,
What was the composition of the inmates?
we were all girls, 400 girls.
Do you remember what the work consisted of?
We worked in a weaving factory, and the name of this place was Frankel's Weaving Factory. Some were working at a ammunition factory.
Can you describe the kappas, the good ones, the bad ones?
Well, we had there 2 Blockgeldtester, and one happened to be my sister, and I think she was wonderful, so was the other one.
Can you describe the food?
Yes, the food was there good. We had bread, soup, meat, and margarine and cheeses.
Can you describe the daily routine?
Well, we got up early in the morning. When we worked, certain weeks we worked during the day, certain weeks we worked at night. Well, we used to get up in the morning. We didn't have to stay there at Seilapel only for 5 minutes. We had washed first, had Seilapel, went down for breakfast, and went to work. Then we worked till about 12 o'clock. They would bring us to the factory lunch. We had lunch about a half hour. Back to work. We worked till about 10 o'clock at night. We would come home and have supper and Seilapel again and go to sleep.
Were people killed there?
No, not in this.
Were there any attempts to escape?
Yes, at this camp I was going to escape because a German told me there, one of the co-workers that I work at Meister, that the Russians are very close, and if we're going to go away from here, they're going to take us deeper into Germany. But I couldn't do it because I knew my sister was a Blockgeldtester in camp. I wouldn't leave her there and escape on my own. So I went back to camp.
Was there an underground?
No, not that I know of.
How about a planned resistance?
No,
Did you have any contacts with the outside?
no, not at all.
Were there any activities was there any attempt at cultural activity?
Yes, there was one singer, a girl, and one, she was in the Hungarian movies, but I forgot her name.
Were there any children in the camp? Given
No.
it open? What were the relationship between the Jewish inmates?
It was very good. We were very close there. It was like one big family.
Was there antagonism between groups from the same town or between groups from different towns?
No, not at all.
Between Jews and non-Jews?
We were only Jewish girls there.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates?
No,
Were you ill?
no.
Was there medical attention of any kind?
There was medical attention there if somebody needed. There was one nurse, a Jewish girl, and one doctor, also a Jewish girl.
Were they official?
Yes, they were official doctor and nurse.
Could you describe the clothing?
We had their civilian clothing, except we had to sew on a number on our dress and a red stripe in the back of the dress.
What were the sanitary conditions?
They were good there. We had water and we had bathrooms.
Did you receive any partial mail?
No.
Could you tell me the name of the next camp you were at?
Well, the next camp, it took quite a long time because when we left this camp, we didn't know where we were heading to, and it took us about 4 weeks walking on foot through Germany. We walked day and night, and when we got to a camp, there was most men in this camp, but they put us into one barrack. This was called Mauthausen.
Do you remember the date that you arrived?
No, but it must have been about end of January.
Did you arrive alone or with members of your family?
I arrived with my 2 sisters and my cousin there.
And what happened to them?
They came along with me through the whole war.
Was there a selection on arrival?
No, no selections.
Describe the location and the size of the camp.
Well, I don't know how large the camp was because there was most men. We were just in one barrack there, and we were all girls. And it was electric wires. I really don't know much about this camp.
Do you remember the guard system?
There were SS there.
When was the camp set up?
It was set up before because we spoke to some men. They were from Czechoslovakia, and these were Czechoslovakian flyers that we met there.
Could you name the officers and the men that you remember?
No.
How many German guarded the camp?
Oh, there must have been a lot of them because it was a big camp.
Were the Germans SS or did they belong to other units?
SS.
Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis or war criminals?
No.
What was the composition of the inmates?
We were all Jewish girls there.
How about the ages?
The same that we arrived from Neustadt.
And what towns
Young.
were these girls from?
They were from Czechoslovakia and Hungary.
Can you approximate the number that were there?
We were 400 girls.
What did the work consist of?
We didn't work there.
Could
We only stayed there about 3 to 4 days.
Could you describe the kappas?
No, we had no capos there.
How about the food?
The food, only soups.
Could you describe the daily routine?
Only lapel and indoors.
Were people killed?
Not that I seen.
Were there attempts to escape made?
No,
Was there an organized underground?
no,
Planned resistance?
not that I know of.
Any contact with the outside?
No, not at all.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
No,
Were there any children in the camp?
no.
What was the relationship between the Jewish inmates?
They were good. I always had good relationship with them.
Was there any antagonism between people from different towns?
No.
How about between Polish and other Jews?
Well, we didn't have their Polish Jews. We were only Czechoslovakian and Hungarian. We got along very good.
Did you receive any help from fellow inmates?
No,
Were you ill?
no,
Was there medical attention of any kind?
no.
Describe the clothing.
The same clothing, civilian, that we got there, we had that clothing.
How about the sanitary conditions?
Once a day, latrina.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially?
No.
What was the next camp you were at?
The next camp was Bergen-Belsen.
And do you remember the date of arrival?
It was February, the beginning of February.
And what was the method of transportation there?
We came there with open cattle trains.
Were you alone or with members of your family?
I arrived there with my 2 sisters and my cousin again.
Was there a selection on arrival?
No.
Describe the location and the size of the camp.
Well, Bergen-Belsen was a large camp. It's known to the whole world, to the camp where it's located.
Do you remember the guard system?
SS.
Can you name the commander, the officers, or men, or anybody you remember?
I don't know the names of the commanders.
How many Germans guarded the camp?
Oh, there were hundreds.
Were they SS or were they wrong?
SS.
Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis for war criminals?
No, I don't know, because I don't know their names. We always call them like Oberscharführer or things like that.
What was the composition of the inmates?
It was good.
Oh no, that means that how many members were there?
Oh,
Yeah.
thousands
How
of
about ages?
people.
Do you remember ages?
All ages there.
How about sex?
There were, we were all female, but next came to us across electric wire, there were men.
Oh. What was the origin of this camp?
Origin?
What area was it in?
It was in Bergen-Belsen.
What did the work consist of?
We didn't work there.
Can you describe the kappas?
We had no capos there because most of the capos were only in working camps. This was not a working camp.
How was the food there?
Miserable. Hardly any.
What did they give you?
They gave you was sometimes soup and sometimes bread, but we were all so sick already there that we couldn't even go to get it. So they wouldn't just feed us.
Can you describe the daily routines?
No routine at all. Once in a while they would call Sailapile, but I can't even say that every day, every other or third day.
Were people killed there?
There were people dying without killing.
Were there attempts to escape?
No, I guess the people were already so sick they couldn't even walk, not escape.
Was there an organized underground?
No, not that I know.
Land resistance?
No,
How about contact with the outside?
no contact at all.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity made?
No.
Were there any children in the camp?
I heard they were, but I really didn't see them, but I heard that there were some children in this camp.
What was the relationship between the Jewish inmates?
There we met some Polish, non-Jewish girls and Russian, and there really was a problem because these were the Russian girls were really healthy, and they ate all the food, and the Jewish people, when we got there, we were so sick that we couldn't go for the food, so they had it good, they ate it.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates?
No.
Were you ill?
Yes.
Could you tell me the details of that?
Well, I guess from, I don't know what it was, but after the war I found out that I had flag typhoid.
How did you recover?
I recovered after the liberation. After I was liberated, they took me to a hospital. And
Where
there,
Was there medical attention of any kind?
yes, there were doctors and nurses.
Were they official?
Yes.
Were they Germans or Jewish personnel?
These were Jewish, from Czechoslovakia, Jewish doctors.
Do you remember the doctors' names after...
I remember one was Dr. Berger, and there was another one. I can't remember right now his name.
Can you describe the clothing?
Well, we were just laying in bed in gowns.
How was the sanitary condition there?
It was good there.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially?
No, from nobody.
That's the last camp?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.